like the new intro with the wrestling at the end. I don't care what you guys say. Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So glad to have you here. If you like what we're doing, please hit like and subscribe. It is a passive gesture that goes a very long way. If you're a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, so glad to have you back. A quick reminder that TIR is listener funded, so if you'd like to join us for some of our movie night watch parties, there are more of those coming up as we creep closer to Halloween. You know we have to do more movies leading up to Halloween, or champagne room shenanigans, which we will be getting into tonight after this show. MT will be joining me. We'll be going through those videos that she yelled at me about. Be a good time. There's one way to do all that. Become a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber. You'll get access to the champagne room. Join us for movie night. And as a patron, if you can't make it to watch the movie night, you get the replay filled with all of the in-movie banter of the TIR family. By becoming a paid YouTube subscriber or patron, you can make sure TIR can continue to stay on air producing irreverent, intelligent, and insane programming such as this. Now, while you guys are here in the first place, let's talk some dinosaurs. When a publicist pitched me an interview about dinosaurs, I said yes before I even heard the context, because I've got a 7-year-old who's obsessed with prehistoric creatures. But after diving into today's guest, Gerta Keller's The Last Extinction, the real science behind the death of dinosaurs, I found myself reading what felt more like an espionage thriller: cover-ups, sabotage, power plays, and dinosaurs. For decades, we've been taught that a single asteroid impact wiped out the dinosaurs. But Keller's research reveals a different story, one of slow-moving catastrophe, massive volcanic eruptions, and a scientific establishment invested in a simple cinematic narrative. What if the asteroid story wasn't science, but pop science advanced by someone far outside the field and pushed by powerful institutions? Today on TIR, we'll explore the science, the politics, and the personal battles behind one of the fiercest scientific feuds in history. What really killed the dinosaurs? And what this story teaches us about truth, power, and survival. Please welcome our guest, Gerta Keller. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this evening. Your book kind of just starts off the gate where you explain the battles that you're going to have in the scientific world, being one of the few women in the field. You're not taken very seriously when you refute any theories. What was that like early on? This is years before we have STEM and a real push to try to get more women into the field. So what was that like early on for you to even want to be a scientist, when you told your parents, hey, I think I want to be a scientist? I think I want to study rocks. What was the response that you got?
My parents would never know.
Oh.
Because I was one of a dozen kids, and we didn't have any money for studies or anything else.
Wow.
So I left the country, and I went to travel since 19, I guess I went to travel from when I was 17 until I was 23. And that's when I met, I came to San Francisco on the way to South America. That was going to be my last stop. And San Francisco, it was the Flower Children days.
So the late 60s?
It was the late 60s, yes. And the students were telling me, so what are you studying? And I said, I don't study anything because I don't know anything.
Oh.
And they said, well, anybody can study. Just go to City College and take an exam.
Okay.
And so I went to City College, and they gave me an entrance exam, and I passed. And from then on, I could study whatever I wanted. So that became my start.
So you go from City College, and then you went to San Francisco State as well.
At City College, San Francisco State, and then Stanford.
That's a hell of a jump. You open your book describing the biggest, nastiest feud in science and recounting the hostility you faced at the Snowbird 2 conference. That scene read like a public ambush. Why was that debate so vicious? And what does your experience at Snowbird say about power in science?
Well, it was because, number one, I was the only woman who dared to question the impact theory. Mm-hmm. And that was absolutely a no-no for a woman. And so at the Snowbird 2 meeting, there was this one guy. I knew him because he was about my age. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the people who created basically all the stories, or made up all the stories, I should say. And I had, before my talk, I told him that I would have to, I would tell him in advance that what he was going to say was not true. And that was a stupid thing of me, because I showed him the data before the conference started. And he basically, he was speechless because there was so much data there, and I could show him everything that was wrong that he had been saying. And so he got up and walked out. And then when the talk started, basically, he had already garnered all the, I call them the impactors, the people who only believe in the impact. And that was it. And so basically, they just basically tore me apart in the sense that they wouldn't agree. They didn't say that that I was lying. They just said that nobody believes it.
And you didn't know what you were talking about, right? Can you explain?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you explain a little bit about what the impact theory is for those of us that might not be extremely familiar with it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank
the
you.
Impact theory comes to the Alvarez's, which is essentially the Nobel Prize winner physicist who worked on dropping the bomb on Hiroshima, among other things. And Luis Alvarez really loved to play anything. And in this case, he liked the story and essentially made it his own within the first day of the meeting, which was actually in 1980. Yeah, 1980, exactly 1980. I think it was something like June or July. And there were a lot of things, of course, that they were fighting about at that time, but it had to do mostly with NASA trying to make money, because at the time, the then president wanted to not use much money, and they were going to cut NASA for that. And they quickly changed that, including the president, Ronald Reagan at the time. And consequently, Reagan provided a lot of NASA funding for a very long time.
Now, what was it about the theory of impact that caused Reagan to want to give NASA more money? Was it just more reasons to build spaceships and satellites and things that could blow up?
Absolutely, absolutely. But most of all, it was a good story. And making a good story, namely, as he started to begin with, we have the dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs got killed because an asteroid hit Earth. And bang, it was over. And of course, that story was never true. And most of the people that actually fought over it were actually the people who really knew about dinosaurs. And that was a large group and they, within a few years, couple of years, they basically gave up and eliminated any stories on the asteroids as well as the dinosaurs, because they felt it was all fraud.
That's insane. You start by telling the story of your work with, I'm going to try to say this right, foraminifera.
Foraminifera, yes.
Okay.
Close.
Okay.
Very close.
There was a lot in the book. I was like, okay, this is going to be a difficult read for me, which became central to questioning asteroid theory. And you also describe real threats and, of course, like we talked about earlier, the sexism early in your career. How did those experiences shape your perspective and give you confidence to challenge such a dominant narrative?
Well, I think I have to go back to Switzerland, where I was born. And actually, I was born in Liechtenstein, if you ever heard of that. And it's and I was number 6 out of a dozen kids.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. And there were too many kids around. And I got the freedom to virtually do anything from age of 3 years old or even earlier. And that was fantastic, because I could run out and come back at night, or not at all.
Oh, wow.
I could do it. It was fantastic. I could run up into the mountains. In fact, one of the things that when I was about 5, I was told that I had too big lungs. My lungs were too big
Hmm.
because I was running up and down the mountains. So I was kind of a loner,
Hmm.
and um, and that was fine with me. And I started reading when I got to school. In my first class, I read my entire school library in 1 year.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I was able to, my mother said I could choose whatever books I wanted to read from a book club. There I could choose 5 books a week and read them, and whatever I liked, I could buy. And if I didn't like it, I could just not buy them.
Hmm.
And of course, we didn't have the money to not buy them. So I read 7 books every week.
All in your native language, or were you learning different languages too?
No, this was only in my native language.
So did you learn English when you came to the States?
I learned English when I came to the States, yes.
Wow. And you went to school, you went to university in English.
Actually, I went first to learn English in England,
Okay.
and and I got my lower Cambridge degree
Hmm.
in 5 months, simply because I didn't have any more money to pay.
I
So,
mean, it's impressive to learn. I live in a foreign country myself, and I struggle with the language. So I'm always impressed by people that can just hop from country to country and learn the language. Um,
well, it's not so easy.
no,
It's-
no, it is not.
but it was actually a great deal to do. And after that, I decided I would continue on and go traveling and see the world, because I had no way of studying anything
Mhm.
beyond what I did in England. And consequently, I did something that you will think is kind of perhaps stupid, but I went ahead and wanted to see what the world was like in the
Mhm.
war zones.
Oh, you wanted to go to war zones.
I wanted to know what the world was like in the worst case.
Mhm.
And so it was from Vietnam to Cambodia to Thailand to Indonesia, just about everywhere. And did the weirdest travels you can even imagine.
And this is in the late 60s.
I ended that I was born in 45, and I ended that in the late 60s, yes.
What was Southeast Asia like during that time? I'm sure it was extremely dangerous and scary and beautiful all at the same time.
I like danger.
Apparently.
I like danger because there was nothing else to do other than really learn what it was about. And so one of the funny stories was, and it wasn't all that funny, it was going to Laos. And I was traveling with a GI from the US who who was in San Francisco after that. And I had met him on the way when I was in Australia. And so we went together to Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, etc., just about the whole range of things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we did was he would call the military guy in Cambodia, in Thailand, and ask whether it was safe to go to Laos. And they knew that my traveling companion
Mm-hmm.
was not a person they liked to have, because he was kind of a leftist.
Mm-hmm.
And so they told him, it's safe, just go. And so we went there, and it didn't take long to walk through the jungle. And we heard all the cracks, and we knew that we were being followed. And then we were caught. And I did my usual thing. I carried a lot of cigarettes. I never smoked, by the way. But I carried cigarettes because people liked cigarettes, and they wouldn't kill us as fast.
Jesus.
If you did not.
Wow.
So we got there, and they were very happy that they were smoking their cigarettes, and were happy with it. And then they discussed what to do with us, because evidently everyone who got into that jungle was killed. And so the guy that we eventually came and found in this camouflaged area, he asked us what we were doing, where we wanted to go, and why we were here. And my GI guy was telling him, well, he was a leftist, and he was doing this and that. And it turns out it was a Laotian who was working in Florida, and had gone back home in order to fight the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were actually, in the end, we were the only ones that were not killed in that jungle.
Was it
because we were they thought we were good people, and that it was fine. And they let us go for as many days as we wanted to go into Laos.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would come back, and they would give us the rights to travel through. And
that is insane. Well, look, this story makes a lot of sense, because as I'm reading your book, I'm thinking, she's not writing this from a perspective of woe is me. You're not writing this from a perspective of fear, I guess I should say. It does feel angry.
I wasn't. No, it was not angry.
Uh-huh.
It was suicide.
And then there's that too. There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of crazy mixed in there. We gotta mix in the crazy with the suicidal ideation, or it doesn't work.
Exactly. Exactly.
But you also seem to be very comfortable with being the lone woman on a lot of these expeditions that you're going on, because as a woman as a person that likes to travel,
mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're not afraid to travel alone. And as you get, serious about your research, you're going to go on research missions in different parts of the world where you're going to be pretty much sequestered with a group of men. Maybe they're just nerds. But regardless, you're still stuck. So when you, I think it's in the second chapter, I believe it's the second chapter, maybe it's the first chapter, where you talk about the ship you're on with the huge drill that's going,
yes. Yes.
thousands of meters into the ground, where you hear the story about impact, and you're with all your fellow scientists, and they're like, this is interesting, but this is very wrong. How did something that everyone in your field, you say in the book, I don't remember the exact quote, you say, we were constantly studying what happened to the dinosaurs in this one period where they're supposed to start disappearing, but we're studying the ground because that's where the truth lies. And here's some guy looking up to the outer space to find the reasoning, and you guys all thought that was insane. Why did that become dogma so quickly? And what does that tell us about how science and media interact?
Well, I think the reason science and media interacted so well was because Louis Alvarez, the Nobel Prize winner, loved to play games. Anything. He never understood what a dinosaur was. He never understood what the microfossils were, the tiny things that are millimeter size that are telling us about climate change, for instance. But he would make up some stories, and nobody could say no to him, except me.
Well, that's one of the things that I do want to talk about. That you explain this in the book, which again, like I said when we were off air, and I'll say it again on air, wherever you guys are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the description so you can get this book, the Last Extinction: What Really Happened to the Dinosaurs. What I thought I was going to get with this book, and I'll be honest, because I do have research books on here from time to time, was just a lot of research writing, which is extremely boring. And there's none of that in this book, because mainly you're talking about how this theory comes to be, and the media immediately latches onto it. And then there's kind of a institutional funding across the board, where if you are friends with Louis Alvarez and part of his crew
and NASA, yes,
you're going to get funding, you're going to get tenure, you're going to be able to get speaking engagement fees, because this is the hottest thing in town. And again, this is a physicist, not a person that studies dinosaurs.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about the, am I going to say this wrong, the Chicxulub crater?
Yes.
Because that is kind of the centerpiece of asteroid theory, and your research shows that it predates the extinction
by 200,000 years.
That's a lot of years, Gerta. It's a lot of years.
Yes, that is a lot of years. And well, basically, I should say, to begin with, when in 1980, when Alvarez came up with this story, nobody believed it. But within 2 years, he would give a talk and say that we already know it all, it is proven, period. But nobody actually knew anything. They didn't even know what impact was or where it was at that time. So at that point, I had been studying for years before, and I had decided I was going to do something completely different for 5 years, and then the Alvarez thing would blow over. And then I could go back and do the real science. Well, it didn't work out that way. It got worse and worse, and in fact, it's still on. So with the possible change right now, I would think, is because there isn't much money left for NASA.
So the truth can come out.
The truth can come out, yes.
That's crazy. Do you feel with the rise of like I have a 7-year-old, and my 7-year-old, it loves dinosaurs. I don't know what it is about dinosaurs. We didn't watch any dinosaur movies. Just one day, he's like, I like dinosaurs. I'm going to draw them. I'm going to play with them. I'm going to talk like them. I get quizzed on dinosaurs, and I fail. Dr. Keller, I fail every time. He shows me a flashcard of a dinosaur, and they're all a T-Rex to me. Is that a T-Rex? Nope. Eventually it will be. No, Dad, it's a Spinosaurus, Dad. And now he's into Jurassic World and all this other stuff. Is there an interest once again in the science of the past, especially when it comes to climate?
Oh, absolutely. More than ever. But I think I wanted to tell you, before we go completely off on this, I want to tell your son a story about the dinosaurs.
Please do. I hope he's watching. Please do.
So when I was studying the dinosaurs, there was, I didn't know much about that. That was before I went to City College and San Francisco State. But basically, I had met a guy, a scientist from Denmark, who told me that he had traveled to Florida in order to get a couple dozen alligator eggs. Alligators are the closest to dinosaurs that are still today. So he took these alligator eggs, wrapped them into stockings, and the eggs, yes, into stockings, and kept them warm on his flight over to Denmark. And then he started to injecting them with poison.
Oh.
The poison being the gases from volcanism. If you don't know what volcanism is, or your kid does not know, it's these giant eruptions that blow up in the sky. And in this case, these volcanic eruptions they didn't kill the alligators, or for that matter, the dinosaurs either. For instance, in India, there are tens of thousands of dinosaur eggs that never hatched. And the question has always been, why did they not hatch? And so this Danish guy was trying to find out why. It wasn't very exciting about it. For one thing, one after another will eventually died because they couldn't peck their way out of the shells. The shells had become so hardened that none of the eggs could break through.
Was this from over time from the volcanoes?
This was because of the from the volcanic eruptions, for example. The shells would get harder and harder. And so they had to die because they couldn't peck their way out. And so this is essentially the story of what happened in India, where we have tens of thousands of them just lying around. Even today, for that matter.
And that's what you went to go study.
Yes.
And Luis Alvarez just ignored that.
Absolutely ignored it. He did not want anything to have to do with India.
Wow.
Because there was a man who knew a lot about India because he had studied climate there. Dewey McLean was his name. And he was probably the smartest guy when it came to that period. And Luis Alvarez absolutely destroyed him.
You say that in the book, that he kind of went after him. And didn't this, was it Denny McLean? He lost his tenure, his job?
He had tenure. He was going to be full professor, but they wouldn't. But Luis Alvarez and his bunch of people who were supporting him, supporting Luis Alvarez, of course, they absolutely destroyed him. He got very ill eventually. He was a good friend of mine because he was one of the Stanford students at the time. And he used to come and we would talk about these things. So yes, the guy absolutely, and he always had the nastiest things to say to anyone.
You compare the support for this asteroid theory to a religious revival, which is kind of a striking metaphor. Why do you see it that way? And probably more importantly, why is that so dangerous when we talk about science?
Well, number one, religious revival was true. It was nothing but a religious revival. And it was incredible. You could never believe what they did. It was essentially pounding on the table for whenever someone would say, amen, and God what,
Yeah.
And in fact, there is I had one colleague there who was working with me, and he was actually a revivalist. That is, his mother was a revivalist, not him. But he went up, we were sitting in a row of 5 people who were not impactors for these. And we were sitting there, and this guy, Norman MacLeod was his name, he said, watch me, as he stood up and went up on the podium. And then he stood quietly there, and and then everyone went quiet. And then he came with this absolute roar, saying, I believe in the impact. And then he started again, I believe in the impact. And all of a sudden, all these revivalists who were sitting there started, yeah. And they started pumping on the table and doing things. And from then on, he was basically giving them a stupid story. And after that, he turned around and he started giving the real story. Mm-hmm. But they didn't care anymore at that point. Because according to the science magazine's journalist who was there, he said he really had a revival. It was a revival meeting.
Which is not what you want in sciences. I mean, part of science is we're constantly testing these theories to make sure they still make sense. Maybe there's new evidence that's coming out all the time.
Yeah, but not the impactors. Not those from Luis Alvarez's group.
And again, Luis Alvarez did work it was the University of California, Berkeley, where they made the bombs, the atom bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yes.
So he does go back that far.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I'm sure he had friends in high places after that.
He always had friends in high places, as well as low ones.
Well, look at you.
We coming for you.
Yep. That's Gerta. So now we know you don't mess with Gerta. You think you can, but I don't know if you want that heat. You have a chapter, I think it's like chapter 5 or 6. It's like a detective novel almost, where you talk about your years of field work leading to evidence of massive volcanic activity.
Yes.
What were some of the more important discoveries that pointed you towards the Deccan traps as the real culprit?
It was quite simple.
Okay.
The first discovery was actually what we found were these tiny, tiny microscopic smallest animals, actually, about 1 millimeter in size. And that was essentially my discovery. And it was the biggest thing at that point. And after that, the next one was I was able to persuade India's oil companies to allow me to drill some cores, and which is actually the only time they have ever done that. And that is now, I think it was in before 2000. And it was, we made a lot of discoveries through that.
Mm-hmm.
And those discoveries were unprecedented because nobody was ever allowed to get into India's oil corporation. And somehow I managed to do that. Do you know how I managed that? I managed that by reading a book that was 700 pages long.
The Karma Sutra. No?
It said, the title was, I forgot the title. The title was, no, it just slipped my mind. The title was
Did it have something to do with dinosaurs? Or did it have something
nothing
to do?
No, absolutely not. It had something to do, a beautiful girl or something like that.
Oh, you sure it wasn't the Karma Sutra? No.
And it was essentially the history of India.
Okay.
When India split into two parts. Some were those that had come out of Africa versus those that had come out from the other places.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that book because I wanted to know what the history was and how I could approach the oil companies and how I would be able to, well, basically use their science. And it did work. And it worked for many, many years. And we did a lot of drilling, a lot of stuff, and we made more discoveries than I ever thought would be possible.
Did the news, I shouldn't say the news, was media really slow to even want to cover these discoveries since they contradict the impact theory?
No, that was not the problem. Oh, it depends. For the US news,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. They did not want anything that I would say because it was a problem because I disproved a lot of the things that they were saying. And so, well, I basically was the bad girl.
Mm.
And it didn't matter to me because I did more and more science, whether it was from Mexico's or whether from anywhere in the world. We traveled around the world a lot.
Your book is filled. It's always, I feel like every chapter is in a different country.
Yes, absolutely.
You tell a fascinating story about disappearing drilling cores and withheld data.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And how common is that kind of gatekeeping in science?
It was only because of the impactors.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about the drilling cores and how they disappeared.
That was a really funny story.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, National Science Foundation paid for the drilling and that was, of course, very expensive. So what happened is that the impactors, and the main one here that I started off, but I never have mentioned, his name is Jan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Dutch guy. And he is the guy who usually did the worst things you can imagine. But basically, what happened is that 3 times before, there had been drilling from an oil company that was not the National Science Foundation, but a company from Mexico. And each time when they found that the impact did not fit the theory, the course disappeared. So the last time, what happened is that the course had disappeared too. And it was Jan Smith and a couple of other collaborators, but there were probably about 50 people in this room, in this hall, where they could look at the impact course and choose which ones we wanted to study. Well, it didn't take very long, and the core had disappeared. And the guy who actually ran the Mexico outfit, he got, of course, very upset. He was an impactor too. They all were, but this was an honest guy to begin with. And they closed up all the rooms, they closed up the university, and they started searching and searching and searching. And Jan Smith was there searching along with a couple of others. And they always, of course, just did some make-believe things. And then next was somebody found the duffel bag of Jan Smith, and it had the core in there. And the guy was saying, immediately he said, I have the right to take the core, because the Mexicans aren't any good.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
And so, well, he had to, the Mexicans, of course, took the course back. And Jan Smith had to pack up and leave. Well, it didn't take more than a couple of weeks that he could actually come back, back to Mexico, because the US side had decided that Jan Smith would be better off if he was there and not with Mexico. It was dreadful.
You describe a frantic rush to publish and how competition shaped what got accepted as truth. How does this race for prestige and funding affect the science itself?
First of all, the funding at the time was all NASA and NASA's money that was given to the impactors. I'm talking about impactors, the guys who believe in the impact only. And nobody else could get any funds. Would you believe that? Basically, I had some funds because I had received a 5-year award
Mhm.
to do as a woman in science.
Okay.
And after that, I received funds from all over. I did not have to write proposals because I was the only one that actually could get funding, and I could ask for money overnight almost, simply because I had made so many discoveries and so much of the science that it worked.
Are you seeing a shift in science overall of people taking women more seriously? Are there just more women in science? Has there been a bit of a cultural shift? I mean, you've been in the game for a few decades now, so I'm sure you've seen some cultural shifts.
I think, well, there are a few more women.
Mhm.
I was the only one at the time. And that was not easy.
Mhm.
In fact, it never was easy.
Mhm.
So I simply did whatever I wanted,
Mhm.
and I always did. So it's today, yes. I don't know how many female faculty women there are in geosciences in Princeton,
Mhm.
but there may be about 5.
Is geoscience a field where there's just not a lot of people trying to get into it because that's not where the money is right now?
No, there's actually usually a lot of money, except
Okay.
now everything is down because we have a president who does not want to know any science.
And I agree with you. Which is scary. So you connect the whole debate to over an asteroid hit to today's climate crisis and biodiversity loss. What lessons from the fight over dinosaur extinction should we be applying to right now?
Well, the dinosaur extinctions, actually, we have to look at climate change first, because the dinosaurs were on decline already a long time before the extinction. And it's because of climate change to begin with.
Mhm.
And by the time that the mass extinctions occurred,
Mhm.
there were very few dinosaurs around. Very, very few. The big deal in the mass extinction actually was just these tiny microscopic organisms,
Mhm.
and only one survived.
Mm.
And it survives only, and still today survives. It is the most primitive organism and has lived through ages.
And what organism is that?
It is a foraminifera, yes.
Foraminifera.
Yeah, just call it forams. That's
I
what
like that better because I can say that. So before we go, I have some lightning round questions for you. These are just fun, quick questions.
Okay.
If you could correct one misconception about the dinosaurs' extinction, what would that be?
That they went extinct before the mass extinction itself.
Oh, look at you. Okay. Fine. Okay, look at sassy, sassy answer there. What's the most surprising piece of evidence you found in your career?
Most surprising that we can, if we believe what we are doing,
Mhm.
we can go very far, because there is a whole world that needs to know what is going on, and we can always have the evidence and find the evidence. And that's really what makes my book also as the most important one, because the discoveries that we found, and it took us almost 10 years for just certain parts, not even Deccan volcanism. The Deccan volcanism was an absolutely fantastic way of finding out things that I never believed I would be able to do. But we managed it.
What is your favorite dinosaur and why?
I don't have a favorite dinosaur.
Well, you can't talk to my 7-year-old then.
I think that's correct.
Because he is going to ask you your favorite, and if you don't have one, he's going to tell you his favorite, which I do know is the T-Rex.
T-Rex, of course.
I don't know, and every time he wants to have a dinosaur fight, T-Rex is the winner. Whichever dinosaur I choose is the loser. If you could revisit one field site, where would you go?
I have so many field sites.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say. Maybe I would go back to Madagascar.
Ooh, okay. That sounds fancy. That sounds adventurous.
It was a great adventure. And I like adventures.
Yeah, you do. Are scientists today more open or more entrenched than in the 80s?
I think scientists today are less entrenched, and I would say not open, but believing in completely different things than people do these days. Such as, just look at every, I guess I shouldn't say, it's not easy to say, look at every paper that they're writing. And it is actually a fantasy, or something that would maybe come out as a fantasy, but it's never really something that they say is any truth in it. And that is actually the part that disturbs me most about current science.
And lastly, what's the one thing that you would want a 7-year-old dinosaur fan to take away from your work?
Dinosaurs are fantastic organisms. They really are.
Phoenix, if you're watching, you heard it from a real deal scientist. And if Phoenix, if you're watching, Gerta is the real Jurassic World. There you go. Because everything from is Jurassic World. Dr. Keller, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and talk with our audience this evening. We really appreciated your candid nature in the conversation. Wherever you guys are watching or listening to this show later, there's a link in the description to pick up the book, The Last Extinction, What Really Happened to the Dinosaurs. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I enjoyed talking with you, and it was very interesting indeed. It was fun. It was fun.
I hope that's a good thing. Tell so now you have a story to tell all of your scientist friends. I hope when you go have your scientist hangouts tomorrow, you're like, I was on a show with some crazy black guy yesterday. It was actually kind of fun. So you have to make sure you tell your friends.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Have a very good rest of your evening. That is Dr. Gerta Keller. I do want to read this comment by Prairie Fire. This has been an eye-opening interview. I was under the impression the dinosaurs went extinct because they were not allowed on the ark. I'm joking. The American education assistant isn't that bad. Are you talking about AI? That's even funnier if you're talking about AI. AI told you that there's an ark. I could see Prairie Fire because you live in Nebraska, so I could totally understand you having a Christian AI. I'm sure you guys get leftover Texas books, which are horrible. I'm sure there's a whole Moses chapter in your science books. So I'm sure everything today was like, what the hell is this lady talking about dinosaurs? Unless she mentions Jesus riding one into Galilee, I don't want to hear it. I'm just kidding. To everyone that's listening in Nebraska, please don't get mad at me. I've been there. And I know that there are people there that don't believe that. And I think that is in Missouri, right? What is the official TIR stance on the feathers versus scales debate? You guys think I'm joking. I have a 7-year-old. He used to come on the show a lot when he was younger, and we all lived together. But he does quiz me on dinosaurs more than I would like. And the look of disappointment in his eye when I don't get a dinosaur question correct. I've never felt like a worse father. I've never felt like I've let just another human down that much. And that's saying a lot because I've been married. But yeah, when I got the opportunity to do this, I was like, maybe I can get into this kid's good graces and I could be the world's greatest dad again. I haven't been the world's greatest dad for like 3 years. You know how they give you like a little card? No, not even. I'm like, hey, am I the world? He goes, the world's greatest dad would know the difference between a Tyrannosaurus and an Ankylosaurus. I was like, dude, I can't even pronounce that. He goes, and that's my problem. So thank you guys. I'll be going in the champagne room. The link's already up. MT Toussaint will join me again wherever you guys are watching or listening to the show. Please check out the book. It's not what you think it's going to be. It is kind of, I don't want to say a mystery novel because it's not a mystery per se, but it's a very eye-opening book. It's a page turner. It's not written as an academic book at all. It's actually kind of written as a page turning book. Like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? How are these people covering this up? Why are they suppressing the evidence? Check it out, please. And on that note, we are out.